If you ever talked yourself out of something before you even tried it, this one's for you. Because fear of failure is the one thing that looks like it's protecting you, but is actually destroying you. And the worst part is that you invited fear of failure in. You let it come in and convince you that it's on your side. Because it says stuff like, listen, I'm just worried about you. Let's not risk it again. Do you remember what happened last time? That hurt a little bit too much. And it remembers everything. Every time somebody made fun of you, every time somebody told you that you're not good enough, every time you got up and then you fell again, it remembers all of it. And it uses that against you. And that's the thing. Fear of failure didn't just show up one day and came out of nowhere. It came from a place that's real. It came from a teacher who made you feel stupid. It came from disappointed parents. It came from people who are supposed to be friends but are laughing at you. It came from growing up in a world that failure is shameful, that not knowing something is weakness, and that being vulnerable is dangerous. So now, this fear, it stands between you and the job you've always wanted, between you and the relationship you've been craving, between you and the business you keep telling yourself you'll start someday. And you keep letting it because it feels like fear of failure is keeping you safe, but it's not. It's keeping you stuck. And here's what I need you to understand. The price of fear is always bigger than the price of failure. Always. And that's the brutal part. The people who are most afraid of failing, they fail the most because fear stops them from trying. It stops them from taking risks. It stops them from getting experience. And then they get stuck in this loop. I'm afraid of failing, so I avoid action, so I don't have any experience, so my fear gets bigger, and so I avoid even more. Round and around and around in a loop. And you know what the craziest thing is? In most cases, the fear of failure is way, way worse than the actual failure. We suffer so much from imagining the worst than from the worst actually happening. Most of the catastrophic scenarios your brain paints for you, they never happen in real life. And I want to tell you a story about myself that's not easy for me to say. For most of my life, I had a mask on, always. The kind where you're so terrified of anyone finding out that you are not perfect, that I was not perfect. And in order to maintain that mask, I had to avoid everything because anything I would fail at might expose me. And I became the guy who doesn't fail. And you know what? That sounds great on paper. Until you realize it also means I was the guy who doesn't try, the guy who doesn't actually leave. I was the guy who said no to really cool invitations to perform, to talk on stages, all because there was a tiny, tiny chance that that might mess up and reveal what I thought about myself, that I was not enough. And this created the most frustrating loop. How can I be capable if I never try anything? And how can I try anything if I don't feel capable? It's like needing work experience to get your first job, but needing a job for experience. That was my life for years. And in the meantime, life was happening around me. People were out and trying things and failing and then getting back on their feet and then trying again and then moving forward. And I was just there. I was just sitting there, watching my own life happen without me, like a spectator in a game I was supposed to be playing. And then one day it just hit me. Every person I was jealous of, successful ones, confident ones, the ones who seemed like they have it all figured out, they weren't some superhumans. They were very regular people just like me. The only difference, they tried. They let themselves fail. They got knocked down, but then they stood up again. That's literally it. That was the whole secret. And then when I finally realized that, I started trying everything. Photography, videography, screenwriting, acting, candle making, clothing brands. Some of it failed miserably, some of it worked, but every single attempt that I've made taught me something and pushed me forward. The biggest advantage you have right now is the thing you're most ashamed of. Let me explain. Everybody loves a Cinderella story. Everybody loves cheering for the person who fights against all the odds, the underdog, the ones who was not supposed to make it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that your story, your failures, your faults, the moments you're embarrassed about, those aren't just things that happen to you. Those are the most powerful assets you will ever have. I want you to start documenting your journey. Film yourself. Write about it. Even the ugly parts, especially the ugly parts. Because when you eventually make it, and you will, those documented struggles become the story that separates you from every single person who shows only the highlight reel. Think about it. People don't just buy what you make. They buy what you went through to make it. And here's one more thing I think is super interesting. The same brand that's always scaring you has been running constant simulations your entire life. Think about it. What could go wrong? Where's the weak spot? What's not gonna work? What's gonna break? And you know what companies pay millions of dollars for the exact skill? Risk management. Seeing the problem before it happens. That's literally what your anxious brain has been training you to do. That's an excuse to advantage. That's E2A code. Your fear of failure gave you a story nobody else can tell and a radar nobody else has. Next time you're scared to try something, do this before you quit. Number one, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen if I fail at this? Write that down. Number two, how likely is it to actually happen? Give a percentage, 0 to 100. Number three, will I survive it? And number four, how will I recover if that does happen? I call this the horror script exercise. And here's the thing, when you actually write that stuff down, you'll realize that in most cases, the worst case scenario is much less terrible than your brain has been telling you. And there's always a way to come back from it, because your brain loves to paint these catastrophic pictures. Everyone will laugh at me, I will lose everything, my life's gonna be over. And most of that never ever happens. You're living in fear of a movie that's not even playing. And one more thing, super important. Start practicing small, planned failures. What do I mean by that? Try a short presentation in front of a small group of people. Propose a new idea in a meeting. Post something on social media that's not perfect. Every small failure you will survive makes the next one less scary. Think of it like a vaccine, a small dose of the thing you fear, and suddenly it loses its power over you. It suddenly cannot control you. That's it, guys. That is excuse number 6 of 75 in the Excuse Bible. If fear of failure has been keeping you on the sidelines of your own life, the link to this beauty is in the description. There's so much more in there about the things that we all are going through and are holding us back. Let's go.